Oh, I don't know. I don't. He might be in the chat. I should have sent him a link too. I didn't know if he was going to be available or not.
You can.
Yeah, if he's down.
I have no idea. Couldn't get a hold of him.
Oh. Well, I thought Phil was on death's doorstep because I hadn't heard from him in like 24 plus hours. And I was like, hey, are you?
No, I've just been a poopy friend. I'm sick for those listening. I'm a little under the weather, so forgive me if my voice is not as boisterous as normal.
It's just the whispering is borderline sexual, and I don't.
Borderline sexual.
It's
the pickles. The pickles.
I've got mixed feelings about it. So
I'm going to be muting myself so I don't hack into the microphone all night.
Well, we're here. It's Monday night. This is Snakes and Stogies episode 232. We're creeping up on 250. It's nuts. It's wild. We've been doing this for like 5 years now. You realize that, right?
I was actually just going back. I was looking for a photo to show someone at work, and I was scrolling back through photos, and I found the iconic picture of you, me, Jake, and Billy in the car going to get like beer or something at Southeastern Carpet Fest, and it was like 2018, everything, right? It was like March or February 2018. I was like, that's when it all began.
Yep.
That's when it all started.
On the 14th, it was 7 years that we started THP. So
that's incredible.
It's wild. It's
incredible.
It flies by. It's going quick. But yeah, episode 232. We're here. It's brought to you by blackboxcages.com. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram. Let's get our frame up there.
There it is. I started pointing to nothing.
Yeah, it's there. Blackboxcages.com, Facebook and Instagram. Use the code THN25. Get a little bit off your order. Save even more. Choose the pickup option for shipping at checkout. And then drive up to the North Georgia region. Good Lord. Outside of Atlanta. Pick up your order. Save on shipping. Get to see the setup. Meet Clint. Meet Jen. It'll be a good little trip. We recommend it. Awesome cages, awesome racks. You won't be disappointed. FullViewsApparel.com. Hats, shirts. Phil got his Swamp Lion shirt there. Got a Carhartt backpack that I'm going to be doing a giveaway on here soon. Probably run a spring sale here within the next week or so. Haven't exactly decided what I want to do as far as that goes. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, use the code THN at checkout. And that is 15% off your order. That is the exclusive promo code for THN listeners and viewers like you and viewers like Mike Kosicki and Jack Oliver and Adam Ivory and Dustin Black, Nate, the usual suspects. Gang's all here.
Gang's all here.
And then if you're like Phil and you need a hot caffeinated beverage to help get you back to zero when you're not feeling well, cold-blooded caffeine, best coffee around. Get the Snakes and Stogies blend, Mexico and Rwanda, the coffees of both regions together coming in a bag like this. Exactly, just like what Phil's doing there. It's delicious. Use the code SMOKE. It's a little coupon code. Our blend, and there's a lot of other blends to choose from. You will not be disappointed. It is superb coffee. Legitimately some of the best I've ever had. I like their stuff the most, and then we have a smaller guy locally that roasts, here and there, and his stuff is pretty good. He's the one who really put me onto the different countries and stuff when he first had a coffee shop. So to be able to have his stuff and then go and see what Trey and McKendrick are doing, being like, I know that I like Indian coffees and different African varieties and stuff. So it's just like cigars, which you're not smoking tonight, are you?
No, it's a waste of good tobacco.
Fair. Well, then I'll have to smoke double for the both of us, buddy. I got my father Fonseca Mexico.
Oh, nice. That's a dark wrapper.
Look very dark. San Andreas. I wanted to get something different, but I was like, you know what? Let me just grab one of these. I'm at a point now where I'm kind of tired of everything at the shop. I feel like I've had it all a million times over, and I'm just kind of bored with it. I need to start like venturing out.
Yeah.
Get some other stuff. Other than that, I don't really have any updates. I don't know.
Is that a ornamental on your hat?
It is.
Nice.
It is. I think last time I tried to show it, it didn't really. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. That's a good patch, man. It came out nice.
I like the little diamond ones. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about them when I got them. When I got them in, I was like, man, those are small, but they've actually become probably my favorites.
Nice.
I dig them. They're subtle.
Good stuff. I fed the Transvalicus, and the crickets I got this is all they had, and I put 3 in each deli, and realistically the cricket is probably half the size of the scorpion. And I was like, all right, even if they get one, or like if one dies and they eat the carcass, whatever, that's a win for me. So, and I've been like misting them every 3 days or so just to kind of keep some dew droplets in there, right?
Yeah.
Ambient temp is about 85 Fahrenheit during the day and about 72 in the evening. Well, I checked them this morning because I was just in there doing stuff. I got 3 jelly beans. There are no cricket parts.
Pop.
There are no cricket parts in any of those deli cups. So all 3 of them ate all 3 of their larger than them crickets. So rock and roll.
I got some erratum slings, and they're tiny, and so I was like, oh, I'll feed them some of these confused flower beetle larvae that Dustin Black sent me a starter culture of, and thinking that it's like in ratio the perfect size for them, that they'd go for that over like a larger cricket. But I put those in there and they ignore them. I put in a cricket that's like almost half the size of them, if not a little like close to similar in mass, and like crickets are gone. So
is it a movement thing? Do those larvae just not wiggle?
I think that, and it's just they're really shy. The slings are so.
And how big are the flower beetle adults?
Oh man, like
the size of a grain of rice?
Smaller,
like smaller than a boll weevil?
Smaller.
Oh wow. Okay.
We're talking like sugar ant size.
Okay. All right. I'm wondering if that's what's in my dirt that I mixed.
It may be. I mean, these are like absolutely tiny.
Okay.
Like I think they're smaller than the peanut beetles.
Okay. I'm gonna hit up him later and see if send him a picture and see. So sorry,
they're perfect. They're perfect for the maculatus slings because those definitely can't do something on the bigger side. They seem to get really intimidated very easily by anything large that moves a lot. So those little larvae are the perfect size for them, and they've been dropping like 2 or 3 in there at a time, and they're disappearing. So it's good.
Good stuff.
But yeah, other than that, nothing new.
Cool, man. No news is good news.
That's right. But we are back. We are joined again by Mr. Brent Fannin of the Gopher Games documentary. We had Brent on a couple months ago. I don't even know how long it's been.
It's been probably about a year, right?
Yeah.
At least. Almost.
We released it April 10th last year. So
yeah, almost a year. Yeah.
Wow.
Gopher Tortoise Day, April. So I don't know what date it is this year. It's hopefully still the 10th.
We'll have to hunt it down. Yeah, so we're back for an update of sorts. I know there's been some things sort of developing as far as Florida goes and things like that. I figured since we probably had some new people in the fold since we've had you on the first time, just to go back over sort of a quick rundown of the documentary and what you're doing as far as gopher tortoises in Florida and such, and sort of get everyone caught up in case they don't remember or didn't catch the first episode.
You may just like act it out.
Yeah.
Like interpretive dance.
Yeah. Clothed.
Providing your floor is okay, we expect river dance. No hands.
Oh God. My body doesn't do that anymore. I know I don't look that old, but I feel that old.
I like how he says anymore, as if at one point he
Right.
was the Michael Flatley of his region.
I don't get that reference, but I understand where you're going with it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, so I made a documentary. My name is Brent. I directed it. And I made one on the springs in Florida a few years ago, and that one was really awesome. It was a great experience, and I wanted to do it again. So I ended up going down a rabbit hole on the internet and found article after article after article of gopher tortoise problems, and nothing about addressing them or them getting any better. So I did a whole bunch of research, made a documentary, and the documentary basically shows that we got the same issue with our water conservation, with our water management boards, is that there's nothing in the Florida Constitution that says that they have to have any qualifications, that they have to follow any code of ethics, that they have to have no conflicts of interest. There's no guidelines, and they're not elected. So the first one was on the water management districts, but the second documentary covers the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and how it's got, I think 6 out of 7 people have direct ties to development, and one of them a little distant tie. And they're chosen by the governor, so that they're not elected. So they don't care. They don't give a shit what you say. They don't have to, because they're not going to get voted out. They've all donated to their party that they're in right now. So it's just the system is broken. And instead of there being checks and balances intended for conservation, these checks and balances actually act as ways to make killing or relocating gopher tortoises legal. The entire system is broken, and it's serving only the interests of the people who are connected to it through development ties. So the documentary was pointing that out, saying like this species is actually declining. It's incredibly important because they're keystone species, which means that they provide an intangible effect on the environment that, if lost, would be devastating. Their burrows are home to over 360 something other species, and those burrows act as shelter for fires, hurricanes, floods. So it's really important that we have the gopher tortoises, but we're losing them, and we're losing them because we have developers, pretty much only developers, running the Fish and Wildlife Commission. So the point of the documentary was to bring that to light. And that's what I discussed in our first episode or two. And it came out, people really liked it. I won a ton of awards, and it's still making its way through film festivals in Florida, which is fun. I've never been to any of them because Florida's a large state, and I haven't been able to make it to a single one that hasn't been digital. But what I think tonight, I think one of my big updates is like what happened. Like we had a call to action at the end saying, you can help. This isn't hopeless, although it feels like it. Damn feels like it. And when the documentary came out, I pushed people towards a petition online that said, look, we know what's happening. This is a problem, but nobody's addressing it. So let's talk about it and let's fix it. And that wasn't enough for me, to be honest, because just like the FWC, I'm not going to get too into politics, but Florida politics, more than any other state in the union, do not reflect the will of Floridians. They don't give a shit what you think. And honestly, they don't even care about you voting them out because you're not gonna, because they have millions of dollars to counteract any sort of negativity. So it feels so hopeless. And so what I did is I reached out to a representative, and I've been talking to her for quite a while, and I jumped in, did some research, and wrote a bill. And it obviously, like, it went to her team and then to a proofreading team in legislature. It came out. I think the legislative session started about 3 weeks ago, and she called me 15 minutes before the deadline on a Friday to file the bills before the House. And then the session started Monday. She called me with 15 minutes. She's like, I know I told you we can't get this in this year, but we can. I have a spot. Should we do it? So we took 10 minutes to like rapid fire, have a discussion about it. And we decided it was ready. And so we submitted it, and now it's sitting before a committee. And I guess we can get into this a little bit at some point, but because it's rather complex, and honestly, I don't understand the whole legislation process in Florida. process in Florida. But yeah, that's where we are right now. That's our giant leap from last year to now, is that we are now in the legislature. We have taken this conversation as high as it can possibly go. We know that they know who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the FWC knows who we are, and we're ready to go. But the problem now is we need thousands of people to start calling and emailing, and that's really hard to do. So that's our year-long progress.
Yeah, because I think the first time we had, when you were on to talk about the documentary initially, I think when we were towards the ending bit of it there, you had mentioned that was like either you guys had sort of started drawing up sort of a rough draft of it, or you were about to start drawing the rough draft. So it's awesome to see that you guys were able to get it in there, even if it was last minute. How has the reception been so far, as the documentary, between the public and I guess the people that it's sort of pointing out? Have you heard any feedback from them?
No,
None?
not just absolute crickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've gotta, right? Until it's so devastating that you can't ignore it, they will ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
And they are ignoring it as it sits there waiting to be agendaed and before a committee. But yeah, so I did do a public records request at one point and said, because I saw a slew of comments starting on Gopher Games' Instagram account, bleeding into the FWC's account, and no one was calling for violence, but it started to get a little pointed, which I'm not okay with. Let's talk about what's happening. Let's talk about the problem. This isn't personal. Don't go for anybody. But it started to lean that way, and I got a public records request back that said that they knew what was happening and that they wanted to delete some of the comments, but their lawyers stepped in and said, you can't do that. And because it's the government, right? Unless it violates a law or violates our rules for this platform, you can't delete any of it.
Right.
And I guess for those who don't know, a public records request is, I think every state has this. I know the federal government has it, but any documentation that isn't classified, that is an email sent between two commissioners, a text message sent about a job, any of that is government related, is subject to public request. So I sent a message saying, hey, can you do a search through all of the emails that happened in the last week? And are any of those emails covering the term Gopher Games documentary? And 2 of them came back. So anybody can do this, by the way. If you're feeling like you think something's sketchy going on and you want proof, public records request it. If it's not like a massive request, it's free. If it gets huge and they have to spend a lot of time on it, they will charge you. But it's called the Sunshine Law in Florida, and for government transparency. But the real sketchy people in government know not to send emails to each other. Phone calls only. So
it's like the best way to get around taxes is cash business,
Right. It's crazy. It's been a wild ride.
I will say this, since, at least in my own personal observation, since Gopher Games came out and you have more and more Floridians doing similar projects like yours, I've noticed a lot of Instagram and social media pages popping up that are sharing each other's content and data and videos and stuff because of bill after bill coming out of them trying to just bulldoze stuff and make pickleball courts. And we've talked about this before, and how 2024 was you can't call it a win for that because it wasn't squashed, it was just delayed. But a delay is better than a bulldoze. And I think that, I don't want to say that Gopher Games was a trendsetter per se, but it definitely was eye-opening to a lot of people, and those people started to talk to other people, and it snowballed in a great way. So
yeah, I think there's no way to tell, and I don't want to be arrogant and confidently say that this is what happened, but it seems to me like, based on the timing, a lot of shit was going on in Florida, and it has been for a long time, right? Like the red tides and all the major issues in Everglades. Like, people do know that there's a problem, but they don't know where it's coming from. They don't know what to do, and they don't know where to look.
Yeah.
And so when Gopher Games came out, I think that people I've actually had people reach out to me that were in the FWC, and they're like, I didn't know that our commission did this. I didn't know that they function like this. This is awful. I'm like, yeah, you're doing a great job, but your bosses suck. And it's hard to, it's a lot of people have reached out and said, I can't believe that this is happening. This is where these problems are coming from. And once the documentary came out and people started to realize like, this is where we need to look, they did. And they started showing up to the meetings. They started getting on Instagram, looking up other, like following hashtags. And you can see it happen all the time, right? That stuff catches like wildfire. The more inflammatory, and not necessarily like intentionally. I covered some of the stuff that's going on our Instagram, and that stuff specifically goes viral. And I think that people, I don't know if you guys know much about PETA, but like when someone's angry and they find another person that's angry, they're like magnets. And looks like what happened online. Everybody in different areas around the state started to see more and more problems. And then when they looked online, they all gravitated to each other. And now we have this massive group of people who hate what's going on, and they know what to do now. They know where to look. They know where to yell. They know where to email, where to call. And it's kind of beautiful, to be honest.
It got everyone sort of on the same page at the same time. Like before, it was sort of everyone had their own things that they were sort of pushing to change or adapt, and then realizing that there's plenty of other people that also feel the same and are working towards a similar goal. They saw that it was sort of a unifying sort of event of sorts.
Yeah, and this is what I like that. I like that you said the word unifying, because I think that I struggle not to be a big picture kind of person. Like, for example, I have people reach out to me regularly who are like, we have this development behind my backyard that's happening, and like, I don't know how to stop it. There's gopher tortoises, and it looks like they're just killing them, and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to solve that problem. I want to see where that problem came from and get to the source. And that's what I think was beautiful about the timing for Gopher Games, when everybody's starting to realize like there's a massive problem. And it's not just in our county. Gopher Games was like, there it is. That's where it's coming from. And the big picture isn't to go to your local commission, although that's important. The big picture, I think, is to reform the one organization, the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, that is over everything in the state. And if we can fix that, we can start, that's our foundation. We can start to fix everything else. So I think people started to realize that as well. And I'm glad that people are still going to their local commissions and talking to their city council members and whatnot. And we need that. We need that more than ever. But there's only 7 people on the commission for the largest agency in the entire state. And they all have a conflict of interest with what they're doing. So
the thing that just continues to amaze me about it is just the blatancy of it.
Right?
Like, there is zero like subtlety, and like these are just some people that are passionate about wildlife, and instead it's like developer, kind of a developer. Like, there's no veil or like anything. Like, it's just, that's what's,
they don't care.
It's just the blatancy of it is what's amazed me the most out of the whole thing. They're just like, yep.
Here's what's wild about that, on a little bit of a deeper note. When I did the water state, talking about the water management districts, there are like 50 something people, and it's in the Constitution of Florida. It says that there must be this many management districts, this many people chosen by the governor, and it says they should be, but are not limited to, or they can be, but not are limited to the background of environmental science, forestry. Like, it listed a bunch of things related to water, but because it had that clause, it can be, there's nothing that says that it must be. So it doesn't matter. Like, you should, obviously it's common sense to someone who knows what water is.
Degree preferred on an application or like a job listing.
Right.
We'd like it to be the case, but
yeah. So that blew my mind and made me angry. But then when I started researching Gopher Games, I went over the Constitution, like the part about the FWC, over and over and over. Not only is there's no actual like cemented recommendations, there's no recommendations. It just says choose people. That's all it says. And that, how did nobody catch this in 1999? How did nobody catch this 20 something years ago? Like, this is a problem.
I mean, I think it was by design because it used to be a different name. It used to be a different agency.
Well, there used to be ethics too. Like, people at least wanted to show, like you said, that they're not hiding anymore. At least back then they did kind of say, like, look, we think this is a good idea. We should do this. This is important. And they put forth a little bit of effort to veil it. Now they don't give a shit. And everybody's watching. They screwed up. They should have tried harder to hide it. They didn't.
No. It's like, even you look at, I don't think I know of a state naturalist. You know, granted, these aren't naturalists, but I'm saying, like, South Carolina, I don't think they hire a naturalist for the state without them having a degree related to that field. Like, it doesn't happen. And I'm pretty sure that's the case with most other states. So it blows my mind that they're like, here's a ragtag random bunch of people that probably couldn't tell you what, 95% of the species in their backyard are of anything. And they're going to be the ones in charge of all of that. And
well, that's also what's crazy is that they do have qualified people. There are tons of people that work for the FWC that are credentialed researchers, but the commissioners don't listen to them ever, it seems. So yeah, you're right. It is kind of wild that they have what they need, but they're not required to use it. It's crazy. It's just bizarre. It's like, I'm going to go get back surgery. It's like, cool. Well, your surgeon today, he's a podiatrist, and he's going to get you fixed up. He's going to take care of it. Yeah, it's painful. What's the so with the legislation that you guys managed to get put in? Can you give us sort of a rundown of that and what the aim of that is to? For sure. It's so I've titled it the FWC Reform Bill. Its actual name is HJR, which stands for House Joint Resolution, HJR 1625. And the kind of like the small elevator pitch, if you want to call it, is the reform is so damn common sense that if I were to ask you to say, like, tell me what you think is in the FWC Reform Bill, you would probably be correct. We can do that if you want to, or I can just tell you. Take a guess. Go for it. All right. Phil, did you want to?
No. Give us a rundown.
It gets rid of conflicts of interest. It does not allow anybody that would direct the profit directly from any sort of wildlife, fish or wildlife. Like, I don't want to say that development is bad, but development is one of the few industries that is literally the opposite of what conservation is. Mm-hmm. So there would be no conflicts of interest, which it probably includes no developers. No conflicts of interest. There would be required qualifications, and then a code of ethics that they would be required to follow. And
now, were any of these guidelines thought up yet, or this is just the first step into making, like, first you make the law saying there needs to be guidelines. Next, we make the guidelines.
Outlining those, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So usually when you submit a bill, it does not look like it does when it comes out the end of the pipe. So yes, it's just the basics right now. I'll go into detail in a sec on some parts where I did think it was incredibly important to put in some details just to make sure that what we were trying to do didn't end up making things worse. But at the moment, like, it just says a code of ethics, or they're required to go to like 4 hours a year of environmental education, like simple things like that. The place where it goes into detail is one of, I think, the most important things about the FWC right now is that 7 people chosen by a governor, whatever the sitting governor is, and they stay on the commission for 5 years. So I expanded it to 9 because 7 people. Florida, there's 22 million people in Florida, and it's an enormous state with an enormous amount of like ecology and resources that other states don't have. So 7 people is not enough. So we expanded it to 9. And instead of the governor choosing all those, whoever his friends were donating the campaigns, they are 4 of them are chosen by the governor, but they have to have qualifications. If I remember correctly, all 4 of those have to be scientists. And then there's the 5 other ones are chosen. I think one by the DEP, one by the Department of Agriculture. They have to appoint. I can't remember the other 2, but they have to appoint like someone from a large county, someone from a small county. I mean, like rural and urban.
Yeah.
Someone that actively has been working in a conservation organization like Florida Springs Council. Someone who's actually an activist essentially, but in conservation work. It just goes into detail about who these people should be, because I didn't want to say like no developers, that's it, because I wanted to go from having the potential to not reflect any Floridians to only reflecting scientists. That's not what the point of this bill was. The point was to say it represents everybody.
Yeah.
And so we do want a crap ton of scientists, but it does, because they're the ones that know like this is a good idea economically, but it will destroy the environment, which is not good in the long run economically, right? We do have qualifications, but it also makes sure that there's someone representing everyone in the state and their interests.
Yeah. And you just want to cover all the bases in terms of like perspectives and things like that, because someone who's in, maybe downtown Miami isn't going to have the same view of how things are as someone like where Pia and Cody live in Keystone Heights, outside of Gainesville. Like those are vastly different areas, not only just from population standpoint, but from, ecology. I think it's awesome to just not necessarily paint with a broad brush, but just to have all the bases covered in a sense, to where it's like not hyper focused on one thing.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
I do have a little bit of empathy for the people that are in these positions, not the ones that are in now, because I've kind of lost that ability for them. But it is hard to be in a position where you have so much control over the outcome of something that affects 22 million people. That's got to be a struggle. But having 9 people who are qualified, don't have a conflict of interest, they can do whatever their heart says that their constituents want. Like someone from an urban county in a smaller county, right? You're talking about Miami and where's the other place that they were from?
Keystone Heights,
right? Well, I have friends that are in Lake Placid. Like that's the middle of the state. It's so small. So those people are going to have completely different ideas. But what's beautiful about having 9 people with completely different backgrounds is that if one person is like, this idea is great, it's going to be awesome, that other person can say, yeah, no, it's going to screw us over. We need to find a compromise in there somewhere. And you're never going to have a perfect system. And this bill is not perfect. I will admit that right off the bat. It's not perfect, and it needs a lot of changes until it's good. But we're starting at a 0. We need to go somewhere upward. And I think this is a 60, 70 out of 100 if we're starting at 0. So I just want everybody needs to be represented. This is a beautiful state. And the number 1 export of Florida, like the biggest part of the GDP, is usually outdoor recreation.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're a hunter or an angler, or if you just like paddleboarding. Everybody needs the system to be cohesive. Like this ecosystem needs to function. And when it doesn't, we lose billions of dollars and millions of jobs.
Let me ask you something that I feel like I should know this and I don't, but as it stands right now, the commissioners, that is obviously a paid position, or is it a volunteer position?
I mean, yeah, I guess you could use that term. They're appointed by the governor, but I guess you could say it's volunteer. Yeah.
But they're not getting a paycheck.
No, their expenses are covered, but they're not getting a paycheck.
Okay. So going from, 6 to 9, it really doesn't affect the budget really in that regard. Because I know that anytime you try and do something like that, like add more members or add more quote unquote employees, the first thing that they think about is the money. How much is this going to cost extra? How much is it going to cost the taxpayers?
Yeah.
Right.
All of a sudden that matters.
Even if, let's say let's say those 9 people got $90,000 a piece for being in that position. That's a drop in the bucket. Yeah. It doesn't even matter. So yeah, no, they don't get paid at all. I didn't want to touch that topic. Like, I think they should get paid for having that much power and that much responsibility. I think you should be getting paid, but that would completely defeat the purpose of having them appointed, because then that would put essentially a conflict of interest where there doesn't need to be one. So maybe one day they will be paid. I don't understand the economics of it. I didn't touch that in the bill, so I don't know what's supposed to happen with that. But at the moment, no, they're volunteers.
As far as like when you guys go to introduce that, I mean, are you putting like testing the waters in a sense of like maybe getting a sort of a pulse or a litmus test of like, if we were to present this, how, like, what's the best way to word it, to other members that would be voting on that bill? Like, are you reaching out and saying, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing, what do you guys think about this? Or is it literally like, we can submit it, like, let's just throw it out there? The whole process of that, like just the beginning stages of introducing a bill like that is, the whole concept's so foreign to me in terms of like how you even get that foot in the door in the first place, and then making sure that you can even get a little more of that foot in that door just to at least it be a conversation.
Yeah. I've got to admit, as of 3 weeks ago, it was a foreign process to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't fully understand. But yes, that's the point, right? Like, people were chatting on Instagram. People were watching the documentary. A lot of people were watching it. But the conversation can stay among us and nothing's going to happen. So I wanted to bring it to the top. And so it was Dr. She's a doctor, but Representative Anna Eskamani is the one that filed it. I think she's out of Orange County, whatever district that is.
Mm-hmm.
Her and I talked at length, and then like that 10-minute set right before we filed it at the deadline, she was like, "This isn't going to get through, and it's not going to happen. It's rare for it to happen in the first place for most bills anyway, but this one will not get through because they don't want it to get through."
Mm-hmm.
And it's so. Let me preface what I'm about to say with these conservation problems. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a problem through every single administration. It doesn't matter who the governor is. But for the last 30 something years, it's been the Republicans. Mm-hmm. And they've made it very clear that development is a huge priority, and short-term profits are much more important than the long-term ecosystem functionality. So we knew that this was going to get a crap ton of pushback. So yes, the point was, let's do it anyway, because it has to start somewhere. And right now we had like a crap ton of momentum. And she didn't even know this when we talked until we talked right before filing the bill. But a reporter had reached out to me because she found the petition. The petition like started to get a lot of traction on social media, a lot of signatures, which we should talk about in a second. Renegade people on Instagram are powerful. So she didn't know about that, but we were coming up with like, why should we, is this the time, and why is this the time? And like the split oak decision was a huge deal. A lot of people are angry about that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff going on Everglades. There's the bear hunt right now. Like a lot of the stuff that has to do with the FWC was coming up constantly in the news. And she wanted to talk to me and see what was going on with this petition. And she dropped that article the 2 or 3 days, maybe 2 days before. And that article went wild online. And we were like, that's it. This is our wave. We have to ride the wave into the shore. And so we knowing that it's super unlikely that it'll get through, we wanted that conversation to go up. And it is. There was an article in the second largest newspaper in Florida a couple weeks ago, and they republished it today. It's the Tampa Times and Orlando Sentinel. Orlando Sentinel, are you listening? I wrote an op-ed and sent it in, and they said they would publish it, and they have not done that yet. Publish it before it's too late. So yes, we've got big eyes watching. People are watching, and now is the time. I can't. Do you want me to go into a little bit detail about like how this process works? Because I've got the basics.
Because I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people that want to do something similar. I mean, granted, I'm in South Carolina, and there's a bill currently coming down the pipeline that is going to basically be a ban on venomous. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that want to be able to do more than just send an email or a phone call. Because I'm sure all of us, myself included, feel like those only do so much. Like the reach on those doesn't feel like it gets very far. So I know I'm curious myself, and I think it's good for other people to know that it is possible. It is something you can do. Like you may feel like sort of a grain of sand in a beach when it comes to these kinds of things. But I think it is good for people to know that there is more that can be done with some effort. So.
There is, and you got to know who to talk to, and you got to know how to talk to them. But it is definitely possible. And I can't say that I don't know if every state's the same, but I know a lot of them function similarly. So in Florida, there's the House and the Senate, just like the federal level. In the House and the Senate, I'm going to ignore the Senate because I don't know much about it, and because we put this into the House. But is that something? A heater just kicked in. Is that?
I don't hear it.
Sound? Okay, great, perfect. So, Representative Askamani I have watched her for a while bust her ass for conservation stuff. And so I knew she was the right person to talk to. So I reached out. And when you come into a legislative session, which is like almost like a cram session for a couple of months for all the legislatures, you then go back home and work a different job. You have, for the House members, you have 7 bill slots. You can put any bills that you have written or someone else has written into those slots, but only someone who's actually a representative can put a bill in. Mm-hmm. So she had those 7 spots. We got spot 7 out of 7. And when that bill goes in, within the first few days of the legislative session, it is read out loud before the rest of the House. And then I think it's the person who's like the Speaker of the House, if you will, the majority leader. At this point, it's Representative Adam Botana. I think he's the one that chooses multiple committees that it has to go through. And there's tons of committees covering different topics of how the government works in Florida. And so he picked 3, which is good. It's a small number. And then the bill has to go to the first one, the first committee. And they meet once a week during this legislative session. And then Dr. Escamani has to go and stand in front of them, read the bill, and defend it, essentially. Mm-hmm. And those people on the committee who are supposed to have a good knowledge of whatever their committee is, the first one we're looking at is like the natural disasters and environment, something like that. They are like, okay, well, what about this? This doesn't make sense. Or like, how about this? Can we add this? And then she does. And then the bill gets amended a little bit. It gets edited. Mm-hmm. And then we go to the next one. The problem here is, so once you get through all 3 committees, which is what we have, all 3 committees, then whoever is the head honcho, which again, Representative Botana, he has to choose to take that shaped bill and bring it before the entire House to vote on it. And if that doesn't happen, it's dead. Mm-hmm. So that person has a lot of power. And in this weird scenario, not only is he in charge like the House, he also is in charge of the first committee that we have to see. And currently, for the last 2 sessions that they've met, he has ignored the bill. So if he doesn't bring it to that committee, it doesn't go anywhere. Or it could make it to that committee and then go on to the second committee and die there. So it's essentially like you want to, I don't know if you guys have you ever seen a rock at the bottom of a river and you pull a rock next to it outside the river? They are not the same. Mm-hmm. That's what they're doing. They're taking these bills from all of these people and they're putting them through the grinder, the shaper, to form them into something that is good and constitutional and helpful for the state of Florida. And then they will vote on it and see what happens. So that's the process in a nutshell. I might have mild inaccuracies there. I apologize because this is not my wheelhouse, but yeah, so that's where we are right now. We're sitting, waiting for Adam Botana to pick it up and say, okay, we're going to look at this. And at the moment, he's not doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like such an uphill battle. I mean, when it comes to this kind of stuff, as far as like convincing whoever represents you on this, state level, like I always think of Mr. Deeds at the end when he's trying to convince everyone not to break up, his uncle's company. And he's like, well, you're going to have to start convincing people to start hating money, is almost always what I think of when I think of scenarios like this, because I feel like that's kind of pretty much what it is like, to present a bill that's basically saying, hey, we want to put rules on you guys, or like some sort of qualifications. I see that making them squirm a little bit, because then that means that they can't wander aimlessly.
Yeah, it goes back to the part, like, the biggest export in Florida is outdoor recreation, which means that's where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guarantee you that when this bill came out and we started pushing for it to go before the committee, multiple people, probably some of the commissioners, maybe at least one, I would guess, I'm not going to say a name, called him or emailed him or sent something to him and said, we don't want this. We have a lot of power here, and this is going to take it away. And even the governor would know. If he looked at that bill, he'd be like, oh, because these are my friends.
Right.
Right. So no, none of them want this. Nobody that is in that power circle wants this to happen, including Representative Botana, even though he technically isn't he's not a developer and he technically doesn't have any connection to it. He does, or his friends do. And that's how the game is played.
Yeah.
So he probably got multiple people calling him and saying, we don't want this. That's why we need, because we can't hold accountable the commissioners because they're not elected, but we can hold accountable the people that are looking at this bill. And if they get hundreds, if not thousands of angry messages saying, why aren't you reading this? Then he'll probably read it. And actually, I saw a video on Instagram right before we started recording of one of the congressional representative, or the House reps, who there's a bill coming down that will essentially remove the ability for local municipalities to restrict plastics on waterways, or plastics in general, right? Like if you go to Denellen and you try to rent a kayak or like a canoe on the Rainbow River, they will say you're not allowed to take anything on this river that isn't reusable, like no plastic cups, no plastic water. It has to be reusable, everything. You can't take plastic on the water. And what they're trying to do is take that power away and say that nobody in Florida is allowed to restrict plastic use. It's obviously a bad bill. It's just like common sense. It's a bad bill, but they are passing it. And this guy came before them and he said, I had 1,800 emails, and not a single one of them about this bill was positive. Every single one of them said they didn't want this bill. And he's like, why are you guys considering this? That's what we need to do. We need to say a bunch of people are pissed off. We want our gopher tortoises. We want them to live. We don't want Walmarts here. We don't need all these Walmarts and Publixes. So I could talk all day about
I always wonder how often it is they look at those kinds of things and be like, wow, we did get a lot of feedback from people on this that clearly don't want it. Sucks to be them. Like,
sometimes it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it's
crazy.
That's the way I feel as far as South Carolina stuff when it comes down the pipeline, and watching the sessions where they have and vote on these bills. And just, we had a similar exotic, like a venomous ban was on the table a couple of years ago, and it got shelved. And I remember watching the session when they were voting on it live, and just seeing like all my local representatives for it, even after I sent emails. Like, one of them I know through work, because they get stuff through us through work regularly. And it's like, as tempting as it is to send an email like from work saying, hey, it's me, the guy that provides you with X, Y, and Z, like, this bill you're about to go vote on, like, I'm one of those people that it directly affects. If you could think about me when you're doing this, like, that would be great. But just seeing just the wave of like 4, maybe one or two representatives will say no. They don't want it to happen, but it's just like, we've talked about it before, Phil, but like, they go into it, mind's made up. Everything about it is just a formality for them. It's like, how do we get through in a way to where they understand.
Science doesn't matter. Money talks louder.
And I even, so my boss was actually the mayor of the city I live in, up until about a year ago. And I asked him not that long ago, like, about these bills that affect venomous and exotics and stuff like that. I'm like, in your opinion, like, what's the best way to get a hold of these people? Because I feel like the emails and stuff we send, they go to just an inbox that's somewhere on the ether, just collecting these things, and maybe one of their aides or something sees it and be like, wow, there's a lot of emails.
Yeah, you're gonna get an automated response 6 weeks after the fact.
Right.
6 weeks after it was already, quote, voted on.
And then I asked him, because I mean, him being in a public office, granted on a smaller scale, I was like, you know, when people send you emails like that about stuff, like, does it actually make you, like, are they doing anything, basically? Like, are these emails and phone calls, are they seeing these? Are they getting them? Is it just, again, a formality where it's like, it's a phantom phone number that just collects voicemails and never to be heard? And like, same with an inbox for emails. And he's like, no, they have people that see the phone calls, that see the emails, and then they're the ones that go back and report to whoever they're working for, as far as, representatives, and basically say, like, hey, we're getting a lot of pushback on this. You need to look at that. As far as whether or not they're actually reading the emails, like, I know a lot of the USARC stuff is copy paste stuff, which I'm not a big fan of. Anytime I've sent emails, I've maybe taken some of that and used it, but then made it all my own and basically said, like, look, I'm a resident, been a resident, I have no criminal record, like, I'm a citizen, I'm a taxpayer, I work a regular job, like, I'm a regular person and I do this thing at home in my spare time. It's what I like to do. Like, I'm the kind of person you're representing, and I'm the person you're affecting if you pass this,
Yeah.
And he basically said, like, they don't necessarily see them every email and read every single one, but they do see those numbers coming in of people that are speaking up about it.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask Dr. Escamani, say, does it matter if we write our email, like, from our words, or does it matter on a topic if we do the copy paste? I think the copy paste does matter a lot, because that guy on Instagram that was like, so during the legislative session, they are busy, wildly busy. They don't have time to read any emails, much less 1,800. Right. So yeah, it was probably interns and other people, like, and I know that's true because I actually I communicate with them. I don't directly communicate with Dr. Escamani. I go through, like, I send an email, it sends me something back saying, hey, we'll get back to you at some point. At some point, one of her interns will get back to me, and then we'll schedule something if we can. But yeah, they do have tons of people. And so I would imagine that they're going through email after email saying, okay, this one's positive, this one's negative, this one's positive, and keeping track of that. But I don't know if it matters if it's personalized. I would guess if it's like a topic that's not as big, like right now, our bill, there's thousands of people that are mad about it. And so if one person writes a very, very nice, very heartfelt email, I don't think it matters at all, because I don't think they're looking right now. Right now is busy season. They don't have time. But in the off season, if you really want to catch somebody, anybody that's passionate about something that is happening, you need to reach out to your direct representative, because they will often talk to you. Just say, hey, give me 10 minutes and I'll have like bullet points that I'll tell you, and then I'm done. I just want to tell you this one thing and start the conversation, or this is it. Just think on it. Like, they're there, they're elected, so they're gonna listen. So yeah, reach out to them. Just their email is all public knowledge.
I will say this. So my state representative from my area, I don't know his name or her name. I don't know them at all, but there's like 2.1 million people in my county.
Wow.
So odds are you at Broward County.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
So no way in hell am I ever going to get to meet them. It's just not going to happen.
No,
it's just not. But if enough people who are on the topic decide to get together as a whole, and you have 400 people or 1,000 people in your area, because like I said, I think it's like 1.9 as of 2 years ago million people in my county, then you'll get heard. But now you have to make sure that everyone's on the same page, and you have to make sure that the one or two people that you decide to represent your collective clique, make sure they're not a wackadoo who just happens to be involved. Make sure they're saying the right thing. You know what I mean?
That's hard to do, but yes.
And that's been a problem that I've witnessed personally. You know, going to an FWC meeting by me, when the rare occasion that it was, a lot of people showed up, but the people that had the gumption to go up and speak were not people I wanted speaking at all. And there's nothing I can do about it. So just throwing that 2 cents out there.
That's why I'm hoping, at least with the local representatives here, like, because again, I do have the ability to have direct contact with them. Not that I want to use my job or anything like that for that purpose, but I'm hoping that if I send an email to Representative Erickson, who used to be a neighbor more or less when I lived with my vet buddy, and saying, like, you know me, we've talked a lot, like, I'm one of the people this is directly affecting, and hoping that maybe if they see that there is someone that they know that is a sane, normal person, that maybe that would help when they can realize that it's not just sort of these just faceless names that are sending emails, and instead, oh, this is someone that is directly in my community.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully that would make a difference.
As of July 2024, we broke the 2 million mark in my county.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I still can't believe that I have had this much contact with Anna Escamani, because she's in Orlando, like, she's in that district, and she's running for mayor now. So I can't believe she had any time of day for me. But that's why I reached out to her. And if you pay attention to your representatives, you'll know which ones have like the same heart that you do. And she's always been a champion for conservation and for protecting the real natural resources of Florida. So that's why I knew to go to her. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's just another complexity that you have to add to your understanding of how like politics work. Is when you elect somebody, you have to know how they work. And if you don't like anything about them, you probably didn't vote for them, they're probably not going to want to work with you. And at that point, you might want to sit that one out and just wait till you can vote in somebody that you do connect with. But with 2 million people in your county, nah, you're not going to get faced.
Yeah, and is she in Orange County?
Yeah.
So that's approximately 1.5 million. So that's 500,000 less than my county.
Yeah,
it's wild, man.
Still a crap ton of people.
Yeah.
Politics sucks. Everything about it sucks. It's so hard, but the beauty of it is that it's democracy. So I don't know. I don't want to go into thoughts on whether or not democracy is good at this
democracy-ish.
We're still fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
See, you guys talk about how large those populations are here. I think Beaufort County has like North Beaufort County, where I am, is maybe like 60,000 people at this point.
Wow.
It's not that many.
So you could easily meet your representative, and you could easily become your representative.
I live in a it's not as small as it used to be, but it is still fairly small, and a lot of people grow up here and never leave, and like, you're around the people you go to high school with, for the majority of your life, and your kids go to school with their kids and that kind of thing. And so, like, yeah, it's a pretty small world. And again, there's been multiple representatives that I've done things at work for, and it's always super awkward because I know, like,
you should run, Smitty.
Hell no, dude.
Representative Smith.
Seeing what my boss went through as mayor and the level of crazy that he had to deal with on a daily basis.
As mayor.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, it's a thankless job, and I don't know that I'd do very well in it because I'm,
the Herpers of South Carolina might thank you.
If people like that have to have a special ability to take empathy, which is important, and know when to shut it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is for your best interest. I don't care if you hate it. It's not an easy job.
I mean, just the stress of knowing like you have to make major decisions and you're absolutely not going to make everyone happy. Whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision or one that's in complete self-interest, like that's another thing in itself. But like, yeah, I have zero desire to run for any public office.
I kind of do. I kind of want to, because I'm kind of sick and tired of begging people to make a difference. I kind of want to do it myself, but I don't think I'm one of those people that has the empathy, like can turn off my empathy when it's necessary. I don't think.
Well, I've also noticed too, like Buford is a very, very large, like majority retiree population, and we had a younger guy that I went to high school with that ran for mayor with this previous election, and he did really well and he got really close, but they almost always default to the retirees that are the same age with the same sort of set in stone mindset, and it's frustrating to see.
I don't want some young whippersnapper ruining my town.
Exactly.
You could imagine how bad it is though. Like in a small area, I grew up in South Dakota. There are 60,000 people in my city where I grew up, 65 now, and it is the second largest city in the state. They have less than 1 million people as a combined population in that state. If you're the mayor of a city, like people know you. You said you grow up there, you go to high school there, these people. Can you imagine having to make decisions and a lot of the people that are directly affected? That must be harder. That must suck. Because if there's 2.1 million people and you're, making decisions, you're like, I don't know these people.
Yeah, no, it's the complete opposite in that smaller town, man. Because like you'll be going to Walmart and you'll see the representatives hanging out, walking around. Like you'll see the mayor walking around, like.
And they're going to say, what the hell? What the hell were you doing? What were you thinking? Like, they're going to hold you accountable in a social scenario, and that must be awful.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But again, I would hope that seeing these representatives on a fairly regular basis and being like, hey, I'm a guy that's into snakes and stuff. Know that bill that's coming down the pike. If you guys could think of me when you vote on that and not morons that get bit by inland taipans up in Florence, that'd be great.
It blows my mind that they want to regulate venomous. Like, what is statistically, what are the chances that something's going to go wrong? And if it does, it's going to affect
depends on who's owning it.
It doesn't matter, man. It's knee jerk. It's completely knee jerk. But the problem is they didn't have their ducks in a row to really make it knee jerk. We had some, I don't want to get too in depth, nothing animal related, but in Florida, there was an incident that made a lot of people upset, and their knee jerk reaction was to do a knee jerk change. And everyone was like, whoa, you didn't need to do that. Oh, tough cookies. We did it. And now it, from my understanding, and please, anyone who's in legislation or lawyers or whatever, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was to my understanding that it takes 15 to 20 years to undo an amendment. So
wow,
when you vote on an amendment to change it, regardless if it's good or bad, if it gets changed and it turns out to be crappy, it takes 15 to 20 years of hard lawyering and millions of dollars to undo it, opposed to just leaving it alone. And you're essentially no worse off than you were the day before, because especially in Florida, it's my opinion that if they want to make a law, if they want to change something, they're going to do it, whether the people have a say in it or not. But when it comes to the vote, you're going to vote on it, and hopefully it goes the way that you want. But I didn't vote on X, Y, and Z laws. They just did them as a knee-jerk reaction. And now people are pissed about it. And now they're trying to undo it. And it's been, 6-7 years since they did it. And it's probably going to take another 10. Who knows?
Politics is a bitch. Hey, can we jump to Tyson in the chat?
Absolutely.
10 minutes ago, he said, have you considered trying to get something on the ballot? That is an entirely other obstacle. So, Tyson, I don't know if you live in Florida or not.
He does.
Okay. So, yes, you're right. It is in the same way that they don't hide their corruption and self-interest bullshit in the FWC and beyond. DeSantis at the moment, and again, I'm not ragging on the Republicans. I'm just picking the mayor at the moment that's being shitty, or the governor. Yeah, he doesn't want anyone to have control in Florida. He doesn't want voters to say anything. He wants to be able to have complete power. And so he's removing the ability, I wanted to say slowly, but actually rather quickly, for those citizen ballot initiatives, is the official term, to actually exist. At the moment, I want to say it's 8. You can correct me in the chat if you want, but I think it's 800,000 signatures have to be collected and then verified to get something to vote for on the ballot. Like, we have midterms coming up next year, right? To get something on the ballot next year in November, you have to have 800,000 signatures, and they're actually trying to make it way harder. And one of the ways that they made it way harder recently, and you guys probably have experienced or have read about this, you can't just get the 50% threshold. You now have to have a 60% threshold, which doesn't seem like much, but it's actually incredibly common for an important bill that a lot of people support to get just over 50,000, or sorry, just over 50%. So there were 2 citizen-led citizen initiative ballots that made it last year, or this past November, in Florida on the ballot. One of them was marijuana, recreational marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys remember the second one?
No.
I can't remember it. Anyway, both of them got more than 50%. Both of them failed. And to get those 800,000 signatures, people, like organizations, had to spend millions of dollars organizing, sending people door to door, making sure that those people are actually legitimate.
Real, yeah.
It's wild, the amount of money and time it takes to get something on the ballot. And then to find that all of that was wasted, because if you get 59%, which, by the way, the recreational marijuana did.
59%, when you say threshold, what do you...
Of yeses.
Okay.
So let's make recreational marijuana legal.
Right.
59%, 1% away, but it is the majority. But it doesn't matter because Florida doesn't want you to have a say. So that's why when I was thinking about all of this, I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't have millions of dollars or connections to find that. But it's actually even harder to get a constitutional amendment to happen, because first it has to go through the House, which we talked about, the committees and everything. Then it has to go through the Senate, and then it has to go through a ballot. It has to go to the ballot. So if we were to, by some miracle, get this through both the House and the Senate, it would be on the midterms. So this is even harder, but I wanted the conversation to go to the top rather than us try to find a way to spend millions of dollars just to get defeated by a 1%.
I mean, it's almost easier to take the top-down approach.
Yeah.
Than the other way around.
Yeah.
You know?
It's chess. It's 2D, 4D chess, whatever. There are so many different ways to get so many different things done, and you just got to kind of learn and read and talk and find the best one, and hope to God that you have a bunch of other people that are willing to help you. But it's awful. It's an awful process.
What's been the biggest driving force in terms of getting the word out and things about that, be it the documentary or have you noticed anything in particular that's definitely sort of skyrocketed awareness?
I am so glad you said that. And the answer is vigilante accounts on Instagram.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, that was pretty good.
Are you thinking of FWC_commissioners?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys are on Instagram and you're listening to this, go to @FWC_commissioners, and you'll find an account that's not the FWC commissioners. It's some rando who I have spoken with, but still don't know who they are. They are very cloak and dagger, and I understand that because they're pissing a lot of people off. But shortly before the deadline for that bill to be filed, someone started an account that was called the FWC Commissioners, and they started shit posting, showing all the corruption, laying it out in interesting,
borderline whistleblowing.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it was, and people were eating it up. They're getting like millions of hits on some of these videos, and they went from like 0 to 10,000 followers in a couple of weeks. It was like, and they're the reason why the petition that I had started last April, May, which had died essentially, all of a sudden came back to life and was rocketing up. And I reached out to them because we had actually for a while been tagging each other in videos and realized that we were very much of the same heart on what we're trying to accomplish. And now I actually have 3 or 4 different people in our different Instagram accounts I have never met. We are collaborating to take this message and push it as high as we can. And we're getting hundreds of thousands of people that are liking, following, sharing, commenting on all of this content. And that is proof that one person who is clever and really understands what sorry, I have a stutter that I'm dealing with. They understand what needs to be done to make change, and it's public sentiment, and they're very good at it. And they came out of nowhere, and I don't know who they are. Nobody does. I've been accused of being them many times.
At first I was like, maybe
I'm not.
But then I was like, I don't know, just because of how the things being covered were very similar. So I was like,
as evidence to that, I have Gopher Games. Why would I need to be secretive about it when my name is on the title? No, it's not me. And I know I've spoken with the person, but I don't know who they are. So yeah, it's crazy that it just takes one really clever person to bring hundreds of thousands of other people to the conversation, and it's beautiful. And I have decided, please go to @GopherGamesFilm on Instagram and start scrolling through my reels and tell me that's not some funny ass shit posting.
It is.
I have worked hard on it, and I never knew that I could do that. And then I started it because I was inspired by the FWC Commissioner page, and it's been a blast. But the thing is, I'm not lying. I don't put shit in there just to get a reaction. I put what's real. And that's what people are connecting with. If you look through my ones that have like the most likes and shares, it's not the ones that I think are the most impressive or funny. It's the ones that resonate because people are like, are you shitting me? That's real. And then they go look it up. So yeah, that's an answer to your question. It takes vigilante Instagram accounts to make change.
which is honestly a little crazy to me, that like, obviously it's great that it's getting to the people and people are building awareness, but it almost, I'm surprised, and I don't know how to phrase this. I don't even know if I should say this because I don't want to jinx it, but it's interesting to me that these pages have lasted as long as they have, because everything is on the verge, on the fringe of libel or slander. And like, I'm shocked that it hasn't been.
Is it though?
I don't want to say anything. I don't want to jinx it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I would say so. As I'm not a professional, like I'm not an expert on this subject, but the libel and slander thing is, first of all, very hard to prove in court. But second of all, it's actually pretty obvious where the line is. And I have been very careful not to make any claims that are incorrect or unprovable or libel or slanderous. Like, I don't call anybody a shithead online. I don't say you're a piece of crap. Like, there's never a direct attack other than to say this person has done this, which is verifiable.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I'm very careful of that. And I have to be, because I'm public. That person doesn't have to be as careful, but they are. And I know that because I've spoken with them and I've watched what they've been posting. So, but the other thing that protects us, and you guys included, is that we talk about elected officials. Those elected officials, when you sue somebody, it's public record. They don't want to be seen as the guy who has like tiny dick syndrome and is suing some random YouTuber or Instagram shit poster.
Doesn't look good.
But yeah, no, it does not look good at all. So they don't want to do that. So unless you do something awful that is causing them major monetary damage, it is super unlikely that you're going to get sued. But for me, since my documentary itself was very, very public, we made it free for everybody. We actually went to, so everything that we claim in that documentary, I have a document to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are opinions, but those opinions are from people that were interviewed, and those opinions are very clear that they're opinions and not fact. So we even have, if you go to gophergamesfilm.com, click on the learn page, it's literally chronologically the entire documentary with links to all of our facts. So we have covered our asses a lot, not partially because I don't want to get sued, but also because like I don't want people to question my integrity by saying that claim you're making is bullshit. I want to be able to go, nope, here's the document.
Right.
Like I think it's clickbaiting bullshit is not okay. There's too much misinformation in this world.
I hate it.
I don't want to lose my integrity and people to lose trust in me as a documentary filmmaker. And that also diminishes the amount of power that my message has if I even make one small claim that's unverifiable. So yes, you're right. We have to be careful of it, but I don't think it's likely when it comes to the politicians because people are watching them a lot more closely. They're public figures, and so you legally can watch them much more closely.
Well, it also seems pretty slimy to me that someone would want to go after someone that has an opinion. Like as a politician, for someone to be like, "Oh, I don't like that guy because he's saying things that are true." You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tiny dick syndrome kind of thing, and it's embarrassing, and they don't want to deal with that, which is good. The human ego, in an odd way, kind of protects you when it comes to that.
Have you had a lot of people reaching out since the release of the documentary, wanting to get involved in some way or another? Did you see any more traction there?
God, yes. I think the beautiful thing about the documentary is that it was made by a lot of people who reached out to me and gave me footage and stories and pictures that I didn't have. But even after we released it, I got even more people. Just before you started recording today to start the show, someone was messaging me on Instagram or on Messenger saying, I've got this going on in my property, and they actually were talking to me last week about it. And this week, just before we started, they gave me an update saying they've started filling gopher tortoise holes with dirt. And which is, by the way, super illegal unless you've gone through a massive process, which I don't think that they have based on this person's story. So yes, tons and tons of people have been sharing stories with me, asking for help. And it's really hard when I get to that point because I want to say, call the FWC, which is the correct answer. But the FWC is understaffed and they sometimes just really don't care. And you got to get the right person at the right time. And so there could be mass killing on this project that this person's talking about, and nothing will be done about it. Or they'll get lucky and they'll get the right person at the right time who will send an officer out and make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And someone will get a giant fine. By the way, giant means like $4,000.
Yeah.
It's not much. I think Pulte Holmes a few years ago killed a bunch of gopher tortoises and got fined like $15,000 for a multi-million-dollar project.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's the same way here. We have the live oaks, the big glorious live oaks that
I love those so much.
Hundreds of years old, and the penalty for cutting one down is not nearly enough because they're building. Publix is putting up a grocery store or something, right?
Yeah,
they're already sinking so much money into it. They're like, what's an extra 20 or 30 grand for a couple of live oaks getting taken out? Like, the punishment just isn't. The fine isn't enough. It's not painful enough to make them stop and be like, well, maybe we can leave that one. And that's across the board here, not just for commercial developments like that, but like in general. I think a lot of the people developing, they'll just like, we'll take the slap on the wrist, whatever. It's a tree.
Well, it's when you have a fine for something that's supposed to be a law, it's only for poor people.
Yeah.
Or it's just the cost of doing business for a developer.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's something they factor in when they're looking at projects and looking at the financials of it and saying, is this worth the worth X amount of dollars that we're gonna have to shell out. I have no doubt that a lot of the time they're like, yeah, it's no big deal. Well, they factor it into their budget, I'm sure. To where,
Oh yeah, for sure. They have to, right? Because it's cheaper. It's cheaper to kill than it is to pay $6,000 per tortoise to relocate them to another place.
mm-hmm.
It's cheaper to pay the fine than just kill them.
It's still just sick to me that people are even okay with entombing them like that. It just makes me ill thinking about it.
That part was that was the hardest part of the documentary for me to make, because I knew that if I didn't show and make you feel like you were there, that the message wouldn't get through. So I had to put that in the document, like the hard parts in the document.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
It sucked. It sucks. And it was the fun part though, was to try to you have to have a permit to stick a camera down a burrow, a gopher tortoise burrow. And it took me so long to find someone and get them to the right place at the right time. And I got to give a lot of Chase Pirtle. Thank you very much. Shout out to you for making this happen under permit. But I actually bought on Amazon a long ass plumbing camera meant to go way down and allow you to see way deep into
They're
plumbing.
impossible, dude.
And I shipped it over to them, and I was like, I need you to guys record a gopher tortoise under permit from the FWC legally. And all of their programs were shit. Their equipment was shit. It was meant to let you see real quick and then write it down on a piece of paper, not actually film to put into a documentary. So I had to send them specialized equipment that was meant for plumbing to go deep into these things. So yeah, that sucked. But in the end, it was painful to watch, but it got the message through.
Yeah, I got one of those to look in like armadillo burrows and stuff on my parents' property, because there's a bunch that look like they've been abandoned for a while, and I couldn't, because of how it was too flimsy. First of all, like it wasn't stiff enough to really like get down in there.
It's hard,
and it was stupid long. It was like 20 feet or something ridiculous. And I just, after like 2 days of trying to get it to cooperate to see what was in those things, I was just like, this is stupid. What am I doing?
Well, one of the easy, well, I guess it's not easy, but it's helpful ways is look at the apron. So has the dirt outside of the burrow been disturbed and look like someone was like scooping out?
Right.
And if it hasn't for a long time, nah, it's not active. But that's the crazy thing about gopher tortoises is that burrow is still incredibly important, even if it doesn't have a tortoise in it.
Yeah.
So it's legal to destroy it now because there's not a tortoise in it. But that's the problem with the laws, is they don't cover the 360 species that use it, just the tortoise.
I can't wrap my head around the fact that anyone can look at one of those and be like, yeah, bury it. Like seeing them in the wild now, I'm like, anytime I see those, that's what I think of, is like, there's people that are completely okay with just slabbing right over this.
Yeah.
And like, it just, you look at them and they're so cool. And like when we were last year, when we were inland a little bit, there are some gophers here in South Carolina. We found a little baby one that was like, that big, and like watching that thing just do its thing, and like seeing all the other burrows of bigger ones and adults and smaller burrows of smaller ones and stuff, and just thinking like, man, there's people that are just fully willing to just let these things slowly die. Is just
sadly, it's the majority, man. We are the minority in this opinion.
I don't think that's true.
I really do.
People are just willing to be like, money or tortoise.
At least in my area, I would be shocked if I work in retail sales, and
it makes more sense where you are, just because it is more of a developed place, like where they are here. They're out
the majority of the people here are transplants from the Northeast, the megalopolis. And they don't give a shit at all, man.
Yeah.
They don't care. Yeah.
But if you look at the numbers on like the people that are supporting online and the people that are supporting these bills that do make a change, I think the majority of people in general would, if you ask someone, is it okay to entomb a tortoise and let it die for a year? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't support that. But in your area, that sucks that the majority does. But I think in general, there are enough people that would support something that would protects them. And I don't think development is bad. I don't think building things is bad, but just not taking into account the ecosystem, the long-term effects that you're going to have is bullshit. Adding, like, destroying and paying the fine as a cost of doing business is bullshit. And there should be things in place to corral that.
I mean, that's the common thread with all of it, though, is, and, you know, when, again, my boss, when he was mayor, when there's these developments on the table and stuff, the people that own that land that are selling it to get developed, their reasoning, and he has been told this verbatim, is like, I'm not going to be here in 20 years. I don't care.
Yes.
I'm getting paid right now.
Infinite profits from finite resources.
I'm not going to be here. I'm literally going to be dead in 20 or 30 years. Like, why do I care what happens? Like, I'll take my, you know, 7-figure check and go and enjoy my last handful of years on this rock, you know. And it's like, it's really sad that that's the mentality of a lot of people, you know. That,
I think what's sad is that I can understand that. I don't know if you guys can. I get that.
To a degree.
Right?
Yeah.
But I could be a dick that's selfish or not. And I choose not to be. They're choosing to be. So although I understand what they're saying, and I feel that sometimes when it's so hard to exist in this world right now.
But the other side of that coin is you can look at it of like, yeah, I'm not going to be here in 20 years. So what difference does that money make? Like, why not just donate that land?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't take that check with you when you get 6 feet under. Like, but that's a mentality thing. You know, that's just the views. And unfortunately, a lot of those same people that are saying that very same thing are not native. Like, they're not residents here. They're transplants, like Phil was saying. You know, they're from New York or Ohio or Jersey or whatever, and they're like, that property is my vacation. That was going to be my vacation rental or my vacation property. Like, I don't care. Like, sell it so they can put, like, right now, the thing, I don't know about down there, but here they are putting up apartment complexes like crazy, and it makes zero sense because there's no way they can even fill them all. But for some reason, they're putting them up. And I think,
you know why?
Someone had mentioned the theory was that, like, because housing costs are going so high, a lot of retirees are now starting to go more towards like condos and apartments because it's cheaper.
So everyone in my area who is either trying to get their first home or retiring, so you have like people in their 30s or people in their 70s, they can't do it in South Florida anymore. Yeah. So they're going to South Carolina. And then the people that there was a big boom right after COVID of, you know, New York, Long Island, megalopolis, East Coast, Northeast, whatever. They had a home that was, and I'm just going to use round numbers, right? They had a home that was only worth $500,000, but they sold it for like 1.2 million.
Yep.
So they're like, oh, screw it. This house in Florida that's really only worth $300,000, I'll spend $1 million in it. Who gives a shit? I've got the money. Right. And they do it. Well, now that's kind of plateaued, and they're like, oh man, maybe I can't afford South Florida. I'm going to go to South Carolina. Now, by me, we have golf, like where I used to live across town. My apartment complex was almost 30 years old, and it was in between an abandoned golf course. And over 15, 20 years, that abandoned golf course was taken back by Florida. It was basically jungle with some like little pasture areas where it used to be, you know.
Am I the only one that gets weird satisfaction out of seeing that?
Oh, no, it's awesome.
Like, I like seeing old houses that have been abandoned and stuff just getting taken over by vines, and
it's beautiful.
I love it.
And it happens so quick by me too, which is great. The jungle just takes it back. But these areas are getting bought out, and they're doing hundreds, if not thousands, of, I would call them condos or apartments, right? And not a single one is for sale. It's all for rent, and it's all big companies, big conglomerates like BlackRock. They don't want us, the three of us on here. They don't want us owning anything. They want us committed to the rent.
Keep them on the teat, man.
Keep them on the teat. And because of that, the people that do have the money to buy stuff, they're like, well, there's nothing here to buy. I'm just going to go to North Carolina or South Carolina.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that you having an explosion of apartments to me makes sense because everyone who's down here is getting the fuck out of Dodge and going to you.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Hey, real quick. I don't know, Jack, I don't know who you are, but I like you. Turtles are the great reptile uniter.
Jack's
I love that. That's one of the reasons why I made Gopher Games, because people connect with the cute ass tortoises. They're so cute.
turtles and frogs, man.
The poster that we have for our documentary with the big old bulldozer coming right behind the tiny little baby tortoise, that is photoshopped, by the way. Yeah, you're right. They do unite people around reptiles. I love that. Sorry to sidebar, but I thought that was a great phrase.
Here's what's even wilder about one of the huge apartment complexes they're building is I was told by a family member who works for the county in some capacity, said that the developers for that over-ordered lumber by $250,000. And instead of just having someone pick it up and relocate it to another job site, it is apparently cheaper for them to pretty much just give it away. And then it's not even treated. So it's been sitting out while they wait to build, and it's already warping and already molding. So within the next 7 to 10 years, like, those apartments are already going to be falling apart. Like, it's just not that it's great that they're putting it there in the first place, but the fact that it's going to be like really crappy subpar ones to begin with. Like, you're clearing land for that, for something that's not even going to be built until like last. It's not even going to hold up. Is just, again, I'm sure it's a thing of like, we're getting paid. Who cares? It's the property managers, deal at that point. Like, they can deal with it.
It's selfish as shit.
It's just, dude, it's mind blowing. And just when you think it can't get any goofier, it does. It gets one upped by something else.
Yeah.
So,
but on a positive note, I really feel like the Florida outdoor community is rallied more than ever, with everything from Instagram posts and just videos like Gopher Games. I really feel like there's more people watching construction sites and watching bills coming out and being aware that, oh man, they're going to bulldoze this and make a pickleball court. It makes me happy to know that people are more observant and more aware of it than ever before.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a much more united front.
Yeah, it's kind of sad though that we had to get to the point where everything's really, 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 really bad before the majority of people start to pay attention and actually care. But I guess it's the reality of humanity.
Well, I mean, here's a question for both of you. Like, do you ever see there being a shift on the societal level where people start thinking twice overall? Like, the majority now takes into consideration things like this as the older generation sort of fizzle out. That is much more of the opinion of, I'm not going to be here. Who cares? I'm getting paid. Do you think that people like our generation, my kids' generation, they're going to be more conscientious about that kind of stuff? Or do you think it's going to kind of more or less stay the same?
Brent?
Yeah. And where the reason? Phil, how old are you?
I'm 38 now. Yeah, 38.
Smitty, you?
34.
I'm 36. We're millennials. We're the first generation that is going to change all of this. And yes, I do think that's the case. And again, it sucks that it had to get this bad. And our generation, millennials, grew up with like the story of the white picket fence and the nice little 2.5 kids. And
oh yeah,
like, that's the average in the household. We were told that the nuclear family was a beautiful thing, and all of our hard work was going to get us a nice house.
Yes, work hard and it can be yours.
Me and my wife pay $4,300 a month for rent.
Ooh.
And we, in my neighborhood, if a home goes up for sale for under $700,000, it gets bought by an LLC in Miami, demolished, and made into a McMansion. anything else is wildly expensive. We can't afford to buy a house. It's crazy. We were promised things. Our entire generation was promised a lot. Go to college, work your ass off, make connections, and you'll be rich. No. So all of us are jaded and frustrated. And we didn't know growing up what was going to happen because we didn't have the internet. Like it literally didn't exist when we were born. Maybe you, Smitty, but not me and Phil. Right? Like the internet came about around the late 80s. And we were told specific things that were not true. But now the generations underneath us, they open their phone and they see Instagram's FWC_commissioners account, and they're like, holy shit. And they know what's not true. And there is a shit ton more misinformation than there ever was because of the internet. But at the same time, you can see reality through all of that. And I hope that we've already broken, like the trend has been broken, but we're seeing the fallout of all the selfishness from previous generations. But you're right. They're going to die off and they're going to stop voting for 85-year-old congressional people. And our generation is going to take over. And everyone from us beyond, from us below, I guess, in age, is going to be like, no, we're not going to be that selfish. And we can't be. Because if we're that selfish, our entire planet will implode. So I'm hopeful. Maybe I'm stupid, but I'm at least hopeful.
I think about it on a fairly regular basis. I like to think that sort of the overall mentality of build baby build is going to taper off at least a little bit, enough to sort of hopefully turn things around to a degree. But
yeah. Dragon Lair, thank you for being one of us.
Old Patrick,
75 years old and you're still conservation minded. Fuck yeah, thank you.
Phil, what do you think?
I think that with like Brent said, our millennial generation, I think everything he said is right. I agree with him 1000%, providing that our generation continues to showcase and educate and enlighten, because Gen Z, if we don't do that for them, or we don't do it for whatever our kids would be turning into, like, I mean, I don't, what's Ellie's generation going to be called? Who knows? Providing if we don't do that, Gen Z doesn't give a shit. They don't, because they already know they're never going to own a home, and they don't care. They're like, why would I want to have to fix the roof? The landlord can do it for me, which is not a good attitude to have, in my opinion. But that also trickles down to other things like conservation. When we were kids, down the street was cattle fields, and it was cattle fields. It was wild still. And now it's an apartment complex. Well, my father's generation, it wasn't cattle field. It was just jungle, or wetland or whatever. So it's kind of comparable, or I don't want to say comparable. It's all relative to a certain extent. My late mentor told me that where my house is right now was the most unique aberrant colubrids he'd ever found in his life. Crazy neon red scarlet king snakes, weird zigzaggy pattern cottonmouths. The weirdest aberrant snakes ever was right where my development is now. And he said it was one of the saddest things he'd ever seen when they bulldozed it in 1981 or whatever, way before I was ever born. And he said it sucks because he never found a snake there ever again. And in the, I guess, 20-something years that I've been here, I found one ringneck in this region. That's it.
Yes.
So it's all relative to a certain extent, providing that our generation educates and enlightens the next group coming through. You know what I mean? Because like I said, most Gen Z, if Gen Z in our community, yeah, they're animal people, they're animal nerds, they like it, they have reptiles at home, it's in that. But the rest of the normal, quote unquote, the average Joe people, Gen Z, they don't give a shit. We have to educate them, we have to enlighten them to it.
Yeah.
He's doing them TikTok dances.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Pretty much.
I love and hate TikTok at the same time. It's so funny, but it's also awful.
It's a lot of things. I see some stuff and I'm just like, what possesses someone to say, yep, the internet needs this? Some of those, like, there's like cringe compilations on YouTube that I watch and I'm like,
I can't even do that.
There's the mental health crisis in the country is real. It's like, Jesus.
That algorithm is so scarily accurate, it hurts. My wife is on TikTok a lot. So she works she's a veterinarian. She works wild hours. And when she comes home, she wants to calm down and watch some mindless nothingness. Yep. And she'll save the best of it. And within like a month of us getting married and her showing me her TikToks, her TikTok algorithm knew that I was a straight golden retriever and I had married a mildly autistic woman who was super driven. Like, it knew. It was creepy as hell. And it just, like, by the amount of time that she hesitated or liked every single 5 to 20 second video, it knew who I was. I had never been on TikTok in my life. And it knew who she was, married to me. It was so creepy.
It seems like, at least with Instagram, I've noticed, because I'm not on TikTok as much. I have it. I'm rarely on it. It seems like the algorithm for TikTok, like in terms of what it picks up on and keeps showing you, seems like it's gotten a lot quicker about flooding that, what you're seeing.
Yeah.
With the things that you're looking at.
Since the new administration too, it's got a lot, and it pushes things that I don't want it to push now. I've joined TikTok since my wife started a few years ago. And I've noticed that just like Facebook and Instagram and like all these other platforms have become basically controlled by the billionaires, TikTok has joined them. And it was sad to know that just like less than a week after the latest election, that it was pushing pro MAGA agenda on me. And it was creepy. And again, I don't care what you're affiliated with, but when an organization with that much power is pushing a political agenda, that's scary as shit. And I didn't notice that on TikTok until right after the last election. So as far as I'm concerned, they are compromised, just like every other platform out there, except for this podcast.
Yeah, it's scary overall how much influence social media has on that kind of stuff, and how, like, what's the best word for it? Like, obviously discreet. Like, it does it in ways that, like you were saying, things popped up shortly after the election, but maybe it was stuff that had slowly creeped in, and then eventually, once the gloves were off in terms of the results of that, then it was like
they didn't have to hide it anymore.
Right. It's crazy how Facebook having direct influence over wars, overseas in smaller countries, and like stuff that it's the little icon on the back of the freaking cereal box where they're like, follow us on Facebook. Like, it's just so strange to me that it's like that the monster that social media overall has just become, in terms of what it does to our species and how it controls things, is just, I don't think anyone would have seen this coming 20 years ago.
Jack has a good point that Smitty's been pushing Jill Stein on us, and you've got too much power in this podcast. I don't think that's okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can I cleanse this conversation?
Absolutely.
With some good news?
Always.
Chase Pirtle, please chime in here if you need to. Chase Pirtle from the documentary runs Ashland Biological Preserve, which is a wonderful place where we filmed a lot of our wild Florida Gopher tortoise footage. And he does an amazing job. But that place, without giving you all the details, it was going to disappear. And Chase needed to find someone to help purchase a large portion of that land to make sure that it remained conservation and wasn't developed like all the surrounding stuff.
If I may interject, how was it previously owned before it was up for sale?
Chase, you're gonna have to jump in here, but it was
it was not state land.
It was I think. Please
Okay.
correct me in the chat, Chase. It was partially owned by one of the directors who had like allowed it to continue, but has since then exited the picture, and it was gonna be bought or. I'm waiting for Chase to chime in here.
I think he's a few minutes behind. I don't think he's watching it like live because I've noticed his comments are pertaining to.
Oh, okay.
Minutes back.
So, yeah, it's complex, and I don't know the full details, but I know that someone that was involved in the nonprofit that is actually controlling that had to exit and was going to get rid of that property, but needed to sell it and couldn't wait to just sell it, for us to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy it. But recently, he succeeded and was able to make sure that the entirety of that conservation area is saved and is now, let's just say, Chase chimed in like, yeah, just with a comment that's way behind. So he's not on. Okay. So I can't rely on that. But yeah, he did it. Chase is amazing. And he went out there, and not only did he manage all of this place while pushing Gopher Games, while supporting this bill, but he also was able to secure enough money to fund the purchase of this place to make it in perpetuity a conservation and education center.
That's excellent, man.
Chase is amazing.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How many acres do we know?
Oh God, I wish Chase was live in the chat. I wish that was happening, but no,
ballpark?
It's huge. It's huge. I'll say that. It's many, many, many neighborhoods. It could be multiple neighborhoods, subdevelopments and all that. So hold on. He says, we just changed ownership, so it's a new chapter for us. We are hoping within the year we can add on a few team members. Okay, so not only are they buying it, but they're expanding. Wow. Chase, you're awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And well, we've lost Smitty for a moment. If you've seen the documentary, the other person who was incredibly helpful and interviewed in it was Kim Titterington. She is the wildlife rehabber. Wildlife rehabbers in Florida do not get paid. So when people bring her animals, she just takes them in for free and takes care of them and releases them. And she follows all of the rules. She spends all of her own money and takes in donations when she can. But if you guys are watching this and you really believe in the rescue work that's being done for gopher tortoises, and she'll take in really any reptiles and does a great job rehabbing them. And by the way, tracks the data and gave it to me for the documentary and gives it to anybody that needs data for research. She does that as well. She's like covers all of her bases. Donate to her. Please send her $5 if you had it, $1,000 if you can. She is you can probably just type in her name in Google, but I think Swamp Girl Adventures is I'm going to double check this. Swamp Girl Adventures. There you go. It pops up. It is swampgirladventures.org. And you can donate on there. She needs funding to continue to be able to pay her own bills while saving all of these reptiles. So yes, 2 good stories. Chase just kicked ass, and Kim is continuing to kick ass, but she needs support.
Excellent. I just found her, and I'm following her now too.
Oh yeah, she's great. Awesome. Oh, if you go to Gopher Games Film Instagram, just a few posts ago, I posted a video talking a little bit about her and showing footage of what she does. So she's not just like, here, I've got some duct tape and I'm gonna patch this shell. No, she like has medical equipment and knowledge to actually do the research and the conservation and the rehabilitation and rehab or rescue and rehab. So yeah, she's awesome.
Very cool. Very
Ashton is 100 acres. He says. Tyson says he thinks.
Wow, that's incredible.
I think it's more than that. I think they've got a lot more than that.
That's awesome, and that's a lot of. It's a lot of different ecosystems in that large of an area. That's a lot of different animals. I'm sure you probably don't know. I probably should be asking Chase, but like, is this something that's going to be secured with fencing? Is there neighborhoods around it? Does it butt up to management land? Or is it just like an island into itself?
All of the above, I believe. I've been there a few times. Chase, at the moment, they don't they're not like open to the public, but you can contact them and go in for a tour, and volunteer work is, I think, a lot of fun. If you want to hang out with baby tortoises, you volunteer at Ashton. Yeah, it was surrounded by cattle pasture. There was some silviculture, which is like cultivating trees. There were supposed to be some development in like housing, but I don't think that happened. But yeah, I'd have to have Chase tell you all the details. But it's a huge, huge area, and is incredibly important because it is. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Gainesville area.
Mhm.
Gainesville is expanding a lot. He says 1,700 acres.
Wow.
There you go, Chase.
Massive.
God, it's huge. So Gainesville is expanding in a big way, and they're expanding strongly to the west. And that is where Chase is right now. So essentially, he has been able to successfully stop this massive move to destroy all of the land to the west to build a bunch of housing developments. God, I can't even. Chase, you're incredible. He was a hugely instrumental person in making this documentary happen. And he likes to sing my praises online, which I appreciate because I worked hard. But I contacted him thinking I was going to get some good information. And then I thought, oh, maybe it'll be great to interview him. And then he came on as a producer because he was so passionate about the documentary and getting the message out. And without him, it would not have happened. And so Chase is one of those unique people that you run into where you're like, how do you do all the things that you do and still come to me with a smile on your face? He's amazing.
What's on the horizon as far as projects go next?
For me?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't even know what I'm having for breakfast. Right now, nothing. I'm literally just focused on trying to get this bill to be talked about and to become that discussion that we need it to be. And I'm continually trying to push to get it to pass, but it won't. I think it's too late, to be honest, in this legislative session. But I'm trying to get that word out there. And I have, through the last few weeks, met a bunch of weird random people, like FWC Commissioner Instagram account, a dude named Sergey. I don't know who he is. I just know that we have the same mission. 2 other people in random accounts on Instagram. Like, we're all working together now, even though we've never met. And I'm in a group chat of the same accord of a bunch of random Instagram people. And all we're talking about right now is how can we keep this conversation going? How can we make it bigger? And I think that's the best we can do it right now. I love documentaries, and I would love to make another one, but I don't. I did that last one for free. Like, nobody got paid for Gopher Games. All the money that we raised went into the production. I can't do that again. My wife will kill me. I am married now, and I have to think of another person, and my dog, who's a beautiful boy. So yes, I have to think about other things. I was gonna show you my dog. There it is. Nope. He's incredible. So yeah, I have to think about this guy plus my wife. So I don't know. I do not know, but I'm not going to give up until the legislative session is over, and even then, I'm going to continue to push for people to talk about this. So,
Excellent.
If anybody's out there, you got like 500K, and you want to make another documentary about wildlife, I am in. Let me know.
Is that like the baseline of where it sort of starts to put out a production like that?
Kind of.
I don't even know how you go about figuring out what kind of budget you need for something like that.
Like you want to $5,000. If I told someone in Hollywood that I made a film on $5,000, they'd think I was joking. Like, that is, you can't, like, obviously you can't make a film without paying people. We didn't pay anyone. I didn't get paid. Nobody got paid. We all donated our time. So that doesn't happen. So if you assume that everyone's getting paid, you're looking at minimum of 100K and probably much more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, $500,000 to pay a full multiple teams of people, plus like production costs, plus paying them, plus post-production, and then marketing, and like $500,000 is still a very small budget in this world. So yeah, it sucks. I'm still happy that I did it, but God, I can't do it again.
Scott says Mike Clarkson. I second that.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely got to get Mike Clarkson.
I don't know who that is. Please enlighten me.
We can hook it up.
Yeah, we'll definitely put that link together.
Who is it?
He's a world-renowned herper and biologist who specializes in nature film.
Awesome. I need to watch some of his stuff. Where can I find it?
Everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was part of a psych.
Uh-oh. He pushed the wrong button. There he is.
Are you adding him or am I adding?
Sorry. I am not on my home computer, and I messed up.
Hit the wrong button.
I did.
Yeah, so Mike, he's part of a crew that's done some stuff for Shark Week. He was part of the team that did I don't think it was Nat Geo, it might have been Discovery, but it was a series they did on like nocturnal animals and sort of the relationships there. I'm trying to remember the name of it off the top of my head. I had him on the show. It's been a couple of years since about that series, but he is the president of Herp Conservation International.
Oh.
He's a good Dusk Till Dawn is what it was called. I'll pass along his information, but I think he'd definitely be a good person to get in touch with.
He's got a lot of stuff on IMDb.
Oh yeah,
a lot going on.
Yeah,
I'd love to. I'm all about continuing this work. It's just I can't not get paid, which sucks, right? Like we all want to make a change, but you still have to survive.
Mm-hmm. It's tough. I mean, I look at some of like the quote unquote lower budget movies that are on like Tubi. Like there was some horror movies that are actually pretty good that like I look at and I'm like, even if this is considered low budget, I don't see them spending anything less than like probably a million just in the production and stuff alone. And you think about that, and then like, remember all the really cheesy movies they had on Sci-Fi for the longest time?
Oh sure.
Like these make those look like home movies, and it's still low budget.
Well, I think, and a lot of people don't realize what it costs to not necessarily to film it or to write it, but to physically finish it and produce it in the end. You look at something like Clerks. The initial budget for Clerks in like 93 or 94 was only like $27,000, but they spent $250,000 on music and editing. So, shit adds up quick.
Yeah.
I mean, is that where the bulk of a budget goes, is to editing and stuff? Like paying someone to do that?
We filmed Gopher Games in 3 days. We hit 5 cities, interviewed 3 people in 3 days, and then we spent a year editing, and that was mostly me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it takes a lot. You got to storyboard it. It's a crap ton of footage, and then coloring it, sound editing. Yeah, me and one of the guys over at University of Florida did that. Did all the editing. Yeah, it takes a long time, and it's. I want to say that it's like easy. Clicking buttons is easy, but putting together a cohesive story is not. So, especially when you're interviewing people who say whatever they're not following a script to say what they want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's very hard. And it takes a lot of time.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff involved.
Yeah.
My hat's off to you.
Thanks.
Because I mean, even just posting videos here about tarantula setups, dude. If it's like a 20-minute video, I hate editing that. Like, there's nothing I hate more as far as like what we do with this is like editing. And I don't even edit podcast videos, mostly out of laziness. But like when I do like a dedicated video, about green tree pythons or whatever, like I dread sitting down at my computer and editing. It's mind numbing. So
it sucks.
It's the worst. But if anyone wants to get in contact as far as wanting to get the word out, where do you prefer they do that?
All of our handles and email are Gopher Games Film. So gophergamesfilm@gmail.com. Gopher Games Film on Instagram. Gopher Games Film on Facebook. We have a website, gophergamesfilm.com, which is if you want to learn more, definitely go to that and click on the learn page. We have so much to dive into. But if that 18 minutes is enough for you to be like, I want to be a part of this, just email me, hit me up. We just have a network of people who love what they do, think it's important, and are willing to help you help out. So reach out to me at Gopher Games Film.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we were able to make this happen, even though it was short notice. We still, Brent said, "Hey, let's do an update episode." I said, "Let's do it Monday." He said, "All right."
Yeah. Thank you guys, by the way.
Yeah.
This is, I think one of the things I tried hardest with Gopher Games is to make sure it was accessible and interesting to anybody, whether or not they cared about tortoises, but to be able to talk to a bunch of people who really understand reptiles and their importance. I am humbled by those of you that are in the chat and listening, and to you guys for hosting. Someone who didn't know much about gopher tortoises 2 years ago, but now I know a shit ton. So thank you guys for helping get the word out there to the people that care about it the most.
Yeah, man.
That's what we're here for.
Hell
For sure.
It's our
For
job.
sure.
This episode, as always, was brought to you by blackboxcages.com. Check them out. Get some racks, get some cages, get both, get one or the other. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be disappointed. Use the code THN25 at checkout. Get a little bit off your order. Save even more on shipping and choose the pickup option at checkout. And then once you're done doing that, you hop on over to fulviusapparel.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, coffee mug, hoodies. Hoodie weather is kind of over, at least here in the Southeast for the most part. But they're available. Use the code THN at checkout. That is THN. It's 15% off your order. The exclusive promo code for the Herpetoculture Network listeners and viewers like you. And then Cold-Blooded Caffeine. Best coffee around. You done all that shopping on Black Box and Fulvius. You need to recaffeinate. That's when you hop on over to Cold-Blooded Caffeine. Use code SMOKE at checkout. Get the Snakes and Stogies blend or many of the other offerings they have. Another company that you will not be disappointed with. If you like good coffee, if you're above the stuff on the grocery store shelves and you want the next tier of boutique coffee, Cold-Blooded Caffeine.
No more freeze-dried taste is choice.
That's right. That's right. We will be back later this week. Maybe. I don't know. I got a thing Thursday night, so we might move recording to Wednesday. I have to talk to Jake. I don't know what the plan is there. So thank you all. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.